hate when people gush. Hi, hello there. Hi. It's so cool to just drive for 2 hours and 10 minutes down 35W and see you guys. First, I'm a man without a nation. I gave up my Twitter account to my company. It was at Aim Clear, and I gave it to my company, and now I have 35 Twitter followers at Marty Weintraub. It's like, okay, I can do it. We used to call ourselves an integrated search, PR, display, kitchen sink, paid, organic, everything, because there was no way to describe the mashup of services required to market in an omni-channel, paid, and organic environment on the internet. Now, best we can describe it, we dominate audience targeting and getting customers. Like, we find customers and get them, and the reason that I say that is because it's so hard to describe what we're supposed to do as marketers, but raise your hand if it's not your job to find customers and sell them shit. I'm on a jag right now. I have to warn you that I may not be fit for presentation. I'm jet lagged. Like literally, I just got off the plane from Warsaw, where I spoke to a group of marketers, and then I ducked down to Krakow and visited Auschwitz. Within the last few weeks, I've been to Sydney. I presented at the European Search Awards in Reykjavik, Jerusalem, Krakow. We're not really going to talk about marketing. I'm just going to show you my travel pictures, because that will be easier. New York. I always tell them, everywhere in the world I go, I live there, at the tip of the greatest of the Great Lakes, there, Duluth, Minnesota, where it looks like that. I swear to God, but most of the time it looks like that. And I'm so proud, like, to see a conference like this. Listen, you're bigger than the local conference in Charlotte today. You're bigger than the local conference in Bend, Oregon today. Like, you launched this conference as one of the most important little niche conferences in America. So yay, way to go. Before we get started, we have a lost and found announcement. We found this tonight. So I'm gonna count to 5, and if nobody wants it, it's mine. 3, 4, seriously, anybody missing a shoe? It's a nice shoe. This is what we're going to talk about today. What time do I stop here? What's our stop time? 4:30. Okay, great. With or without questions? Without. Okay, thanks. So psychographics, that's a pretty buzzy word. Like, took me a while to get used to it, but I want to talk about it. And we're going to talk a lot about melding psychographic sensors today for content amplification. Raise your hand if you think you're an advanced marketer, please. Raise your hand if you don't think you're an advanced marketer. Raise your hand if you just don't like raising your hand then. Thank you. We'll talk about taking targeting that we normally think of as Facebook ads or Twitter or LinkedIn or Reddit and taking it internet-wide and globally. I'll spend a little time with human lifecycle targeting. I think you'll find that interesting. To give you a hint, Christmas is one. Everybody goes back. Can I say shit here? Yeah. Everybody goes, how about let's do the rules. I can say dumbass, ass, shit, big ass, but I can't use the F word, the B word, or anything that ends in starved. Okay? I won't be, okay, but I'm jet lagged, I warn you. Human life cycle targeting, people go batshit at Christmas, and there's a lot of other focused events that happens in people's lives that do things like reset cell phone contracts, or it means you have to buy a new car. We'll talk about how content distribution, which is not something new, is the missing link, and how content amplification sets everything free. I'm going to introduce some of you in this audience to psychographic retargeting, which is sort of like internet-wide remarketing on acid. Spend a little time about the concept of packaging in social, how we put things on the wall. Show you some data from aggregated content amplification studies because it scales to multiple channels. How to link build with it, because it works. And then why Google Plus post engagement ads run on an editorial calendar to amplify your content gets you SEO in ways that are unholy, as measured by webmaster tools and analytics. So sound like an adventure? Is that too much for the end of a day where we're cramming it in at the end of the day? I just traveled 18 hours to come to this thing today. Could have spent another day in Auschwitz. Mind-bending stuff. So Facebook, they call it news. What they really need to call it is a new PR agency for Facebook. They talk about it being more easy and effective, and it's not. It's more complicated. Like, it's hard for us to run it. We've got 14 people who run content amplification out of 30, and it's hard. It's really hard, and Facebook just comes out and goes, oh, you don't mean quite as much to us. You should pay for it, which is kind of annoying, because if you're the client that paid to put, I don't know, 500,000 people, 30 million people, 10 million, 10,000 people in your Facebook community, like, it's not that totally valuable like it was before, though there are values to it. And so we all understand, like, you all understand about organic reach and social has certainly been going down, right? Certainly been going down. The exception is amazing content, which tends to have a life of its own, but basically that's what it's looked like for the last few years. That's the bad news. The good news is if you put material on your social walls and you amplify it to amazing audiences with things that look exactly like the organic did before, it's got most of the same fanaticism and pheromones that happened when it was only organic, because it's still your tweeple. Can't believe I called it tweeple. I got Twitter on my mind. I just lost all my Twitter followers. Well, I didn't, but they're my companies now. Paid organic is even better. Like, I'll show you data that says that. Like, we see it in case study after case study. So I don't want to spend too much time on targeting, but for years we've been asking the question, can you sell someone a minivan because they're a pregnant couple and live in the suburbs? Or pizza delivery to people who smoke weed day parted or hour parted at nighttime in London? Or dental adhesives to orthodontists who own small practices and live in third-tier cities? Or chapstick to ski instructors or water treatment plants to city planners while you lobby the selectmen and the academia at the university? And the answer is obviously yes, you can. Like, obviously social is the new display, right? So you talk about the difference between psychographics, which is pretty damn buzzy if you ask me. Like, literally I've walked into rooms where I go, oh, let's talk about psychographics, and they say, are you a walking buzzword on a stick? What the hell are you talking about? So I appreciate that it's a whacked out word. Psychographics are occupations and proclivities and affinities and biases and political implications and the degree that you have and your sexuality and the things that you're interested in. And these things are divided up into a taxonomy of 50s of thousands of categories across Facebook and about 40 other data services. Psychographics, I'm not talking about the search part, though it is amazingly strong to marry queries with psychographic segments and list build with it, which I'm going to get into, which is obviously the future. Picadillos, wacky shit, like psychographics, right? Psychographics. Which one of these do you think I think of myself as late at night when I'm all alone? All of that. There's so many ways to channel psychographics. Look, there's two ways you drive people into your site with paid. Contextual, where it's a billboard, or search, right? So when you get to the contextual part and you're talking about deep personal affinities and layers to define audiences, I just want to go like this right now. This is what happens when I'm jet lagged. Excuse me, I need to take one breath and have some coffee. Where the hell am I? So it's really interesting, even inside of Facebook, because you could target Facebook ads platform to Facebook network users. You could target Google Display Network and YouTube targeting to Google users. There's like 3,000 categories there. Twitter ads using Twitter data to Twitter users. LinkedIn data targeting LinkedIn users. These sites are all basically overgrown networks that figured out how to chop up data inside and sell it to marketers. DMPs, digital media platforms like Blue Kai or the Trade Desk or companies like that pushing third-party data into Facebook and Twitter. DMPs pushing third-party data internet-wide. Basically, most places that most people go on the internet that are mainstream, somebody's keeping track and selling the touches. For God's sake, Expedia sells traffic after a few minutes to other travel sites. And Experian sells credit data and things like that that you could layer in with other things. It's safe to say that really high targeted banner, you know, if you put your banner on Apple Pickers Today publication, I don't need much more targeting. They pick apples, that's their job. Omni-channel lookalikes, you could take anyone's email address and find a bunch of other people that are like them in a bunch of different channels and layer that. Behavioral analytics, that's psychographic, time that is spent on a site or something. And also services like Quantcast that match up behavioral information from analytics and lookalike modeling and things like that. That's basically the available psychographic universe, and it's internet-wide, it's everywhere. Dude, sometimes it's easier to use a DMP with data to drive, like making Facebook ads is not always easiest in Facebook ads. It's easier to use a DMP because you get more data sources. If you say that Facebook is approximately 30% of the internet or whatever it is, that means that there's 70% more and I can grab all that, push it into Facebook if I want. Facebook's partnerships with data are very important. If you're running Facebook ads to Facebook users, you can also use third-party data services that Facebook has a deal with and match it up with Facebook data. Let's look at some examples just to understand the power. I want to talk about targeting a little bit before I talk about content amplification, just so we're all on the same page with the power of this thing. So if you're selling a table saw for Menards, you could target homeowners who their home improvement store shoppers with an affinity for a competitor. They make more than $125K a year and they've got woodworking interests like scroll work or woodworking joints or woodworking shows or cabinet makers. That's pretty cool. You know, if I say, hey, do you want to buy a table saw and target those people and kind of marry the query to the psychographic that way, that can be highly effective. You probably get a 4 or 5% click-through ratio on a mobile feed with that. If Facebook has really gone to these targeting things, it's these categories of targeting that make it a little more complicated and it seems homogenized a bit, but it's really the towel between the interest bucket, the behaviors bucket, and the more demographics bucket. It's the and operator between those things. You could have an interest and a behavior narrowing the audience, a behavior and a more demographic narrowing the audience, and there's different behavior within each of those buckets for how they work within themselves. So that more demographics thing is really crazy, and you should feel lucky. I was just speaking to 30 people who represent most of the media buyers in Poland, and I'm going, you should see all the shit we can do in America that you can't do because you basically have nobody that lives here, and no data. They said they were inspired. I felt like I needed to leave. It's a really powerful box because if you open up every single one of them and you have moms and parents and politics, first of all, how many people here run agencies or sell to marketers? In purchase behaviors, there's one that is affinity to purchase business marketing services under purchase behavior, and you can match it up with like age and they read entrepreneur or like the Inc. 5000. That's pretty interesting. It's interesting to me. So within this more demographic box, you've got some amazing shit. Like, for one thing, home value, that's pretty amazing because it qualifies people for income. Because if you're targeting people, you could either target the ones that have money or not. And if you're selling things, it's always good for them to have money. So what's really fascinating about this box is that within each bucket, you could say the aviation industry or the HVAC industry, or so it adds up, so it adds people to this bucket when you do that. But between the boxes, between the categories, it's the and operator. So if you start with this, you could go, here's who they work for. Understand, like these decrease the audience. Within the box, it increases the audience, but between the boxes, it decreases them. So quite a bit of layering can occur inside this box. It's really easy to target marketers, you guys. It's really powerful to do stuff like choose the company they work for, like how big a house they live in, so you know that they're higher up in the food chain. Maybe filter them by age, and then sell your marketing services to them. Partnered. Then the next bucket is behaviors, and it's incredibly powerful. Behaviors is where the partner data lives. So here's some examples of how to match this stuff up with precise interests. So start with this. This is selling a water park in Duluth. You've got people who are 24 and older, they're female, they like swimming in water parks, they're homeowners and they're parents, right? I'm selling a water park here. Here's one. Their interests are private pilot licensing and certification, flight training, airplane, single engine, land, etc., etc. That's a pretty big reach of 280,000 people, and it's hard to sell an airplane. So how about if we go into partner data and qualify them by money? Like, I'm pretty up on targeting people, filtering by money right now. Here's another one. They're 22, they're interested in shopping, their behaviors from partner data are young women's apparels, accessories, or shopping. But they also, you could clarify that farther by saying they like to use high-end department store cards, active credit card users or premium credit cards, and their parents. Like, there's no limits to how you can mash this data up. I could spend days talking to you about different targeting scenarios, but it's really powerful. Search still remains the most important signal in most applications, but especially if you have something that people don't know how to search for it. This stuff's really powerful. So here's the big deal, and this is our new job description if you serve contextual or social ads. The kind of targeting that we're used to inside of Facebook is not even close to just Facebook anymore. Like, that's just one piece of it. Facebook is cool, it works really, really well, but it's not the only place at all. You will be getting to know these companies. How many people know these companies? How many people work with like one of them? Axiom. How many people work with one of them outside of Facebook? How many people work with them but don't like raising their hands? Doing okay? So there's a lot of power here. By way of disclosure, Newstar and Targus are AimClear clients. I spend a fair amount of time selling big data marketing data to marketers that don't know what it does and don't know how to search for it, which is fascinating. But there's a lot of stuff in here, like Dun & Bradstreet or Ford's, or you know what, TransUnion and Experian are money qualifiers. Blue Kai is amazingly deep and a platform itself. ComScore, Dun & Bradstreet. This is amazing stuff. So you could use a DMP like Blue Kai or Trade Desk. You could go into it and you could just layer these. And DMPs have different layering options than Facebook does. And oftentimes it's cooler to use these services in the DMP, use FBX as a targeting channel instead of a retargeting channel, and serve this data into Facebook in page post ads. For the 6 people in the room that really tracked that, hopefully it changed your life. If you want to know what all the data services do and save yourself a little time, Blue Kai has a thing called Little Blue Book. Google Blue Kai Little Blue Book, and it's a running dossier of the most important data services, certainly in America and probably in the world. And it says what the data is, where the data comes from, how they refresh it. Because the first question is, if I have data that says somebody's going to buy a new car, how good is it and where does it come from? It's a wildly eclectic universe of third-party data. Just look at this stuff. Frequent online gamer, high-speed data and video customer, individual wireless plan subscriber, or Latin America travelers, DVR user, heavy internet user. These can all be layered using your DMP, different types of credit cards, premium credit cards. And this is incredibly powerful. I know you're thinking, oh, display ads, and they're perfectly fine for banner ads, but they work really well for mid-funnel content amplification. You use this stuff to introduce people into the funnel, which actually looks a little more like a bomb, but I'll show you that later. So just to finish talking about psychographic targeting before we get into the fun stuff, think about the different human life cycle things. I first understood this working with a cell phone company in Sweden when we figured out that if you targeted people who were immigrating to Sweden, they needed a new freaking cell phone. They needed a new car, they needed a new credit card, they needed a new house, they needed new car insurance, they needed new everything pretty much. And then we started thinking, oh, well, you know, Christmas is the big one, and then Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and then Halloweeny, and then Mother's Day and Father's Day, and then we started getting deeper, because you know what, if you have sexual difficulties, you need pharmaceuticals sometimes. right? If you're retiring and you don't have quite enough money, you have a set of concerns that people who are about to retire that are loaded are. And so almost every marketer in the world for their product can go, people tend to buy my shit at this time, when their eyes are dry. Like, so it's really, psychographics can be thought of in that way, and so I just want you to keep that in mind. This is just sampling from various data services. They're looking for a job, they like jewelry and watches, they're retired. Okay, beautiful. Everybody okay? Yeah. Ready for the next part of our journey? Auschwitz will blow your mind. Seriously. It's like going to Jerusalem where you don't really understand how powerful it is until you're flying away, unlike Rome where you go. So content, how many people here do content marketing? How many people here get so much out of your content marketing, links, social signals, conversion, that you're just happy as a clam and you never have to worry about doing any other conversion ever? That's not because people, how many people here get so much from SEO that they never have to buy AdWords? Good for you. Hi, Rand. That thing that you talked about to me at MozCon on the stage turned out to be the way the internet grew to be, you know.
I see. You are a predictor of the future.
No, I'm a dumbass that can't explain things 2 years early. Nice to see you. I have so many friends here. So the reason that we have content is because we want traffic to our site that is focused. Like, we want customers, we want traffic to our site. Ultimately, we need attributable conversion. We have to be able to say to come to this content means at some point down the road, someone's going to take an action that matters to us. We need links, we still need links, right? Links still matter. So to see links, you have to have people see the shit. You need social signals from actual people. Like, I like social signals in Google Plus a lot. That works great. If you're gonna get likes and follows and shares and stuff, which I don't like to pay for, but are very good, because there's studies that say to like my shit in Facebook means someday you're gonna buy something or do something good. You don't want little penguins and pandas and hummingbirds and stuff nipping you on your ass and making you uncomfortable when you talk to your boss. Oh, all our content went away because we suck, because we bought links from India 4 years ago. And you have to make sure that PR people see your stuff. Influencers, bloggers, tech columnists for major American newspapers, niche publication bloggers, bloggers who work for certain companies, etc., etc. So in short, the reason that we do content is for conversion, right? SEO, because we want to be visible in search engines, and friendship, right? Someone's crying, my Lord, kumbaya. Everybody, oh Lord, kumbaya. This is what you get when I am jet lagged. Content distribution is everything. Content distribution has been everything forever. Content, last time I checked, a landing page is content. It's just siloed content where you herd them like kitty cats into the bomb. I think I'm kidding. So let's just break it down. So this is sort of the organic universe, right? And at the center, my hot white light is going to be conversion, because if I don't, every branding campaign, every awareness campaign I ever did in my whole career, it was exactly 6 minutes till some pissed off person who wasn't in the loop said, why aren't we selling anything? Sorry. Right? Awareness until we have to sell. So conversion. And to get the organic prominence, you've got to get people talking about it, and you have to get links. And to do that, it involves getting people into a community, and PR, which is the systematic outreach to influencers, and SEO, search engine optimization, right? But there's not enough SEO above the fold, so we buy search pay-per-click to amplify it, right? There's not enough SEO above the fold. I mean, SEO is awesome, but there's not quite enough of it. You know why there's not enough SEO? Because every platform, engine, community, network, platform, anything that ever gave us marketers something above the fold that drive traffic to my website that I could make money on, they found a way to charge me for it. And the smart ones made it look just like organic did before. That's why Google and Facebook make a lot more money than any of our companies do. Well, that's not necessarily true, but they make more money than I do. Oh Lord, kumbaya. So, to get the bottom part of that community building and public relations and social signals and links and conversion, there's not enough of that above the fold either. There's just not quite enough, so that's why we buy social PPC, right? That's why we do it. It's been hard for organic-only marketers for a little while. Like, there's just been less above the fold. There's not so much free social propagation anymore, and it's easy for links and content development. How many people here spend lots of money on content and don't get shit out of it? We see that, right? Thank you for admitting that. I love you. I love you. Open fire! No, just kidding. I don't mean that. I don't mean that at all. I'm just in a space. I was just in Birkenau. Shit. This was a banner ad we ran to people who have an affinity to purchase marketing services, and the CTR was 4.2%. And it went to a landing page that said, never mind. They took away SEO in bulk kind of a long time ago. Others here would disagree with me, but yeah. That's all paid, right, for commercial phrases. And what's really insidious is those PLAs look a lot like what image search used to look like before, like PLAs. And 2013 was a really hard one if you're an organic-only social marketer. Most marketers I know who say that they are organic-only, they're not. They pay, just like everybody else does, and they brand their company as organic. The kitty's going to the doctor going, meow, meow. Paid, and it looks like organic. That's my S4, now I have an S5, but that's my S4. That's the whole freaking screen. Like, that thing can have a 5% click-through ratio if it's not a stupid-ass ad like that. And you know what? You can sure tell that that thing is sponsored. I'm sure transparency. Like, that's exactly what they think they can get away with before the FTC shuts them down. I know that's what I looked at first. Twitter, the sacred tweet. Twitter, the sacred tweet. You know what? Yeah, they'll never take the sacred tweet away because there's no edge rank, except that's all paid. There's no edge rank, it's just if more of it is paid, then people have to watch for longer so they see less. So there's a linear edge rank, essentially. Volume on the page. Here's LinkedIn. Like LinkedIn is finally useful for paid marketing, you guys, because they finally hoard out the organic part to look organic and be paid. Or it's just like Facebook. They finally got the memo and sold their souls. So we're told as organic marketers that we're at the center. We are the hub, right? And we push out on all organic channels, paid, and in social. And I'm so jet lagged, I can't even see straight, but I'm very happy to be doing this. But the reality is that's what it looks like if you don't know how to re-enable the organic effect. That's what your SEO looks like if you don't buy AdWords. That's what your content distribution in social looks like if you don't know how to buy paid, organic-looking ad units. The social channels are so smart. Okay, breath number 2. Everybody thinks something nice about their mom. They just made that up. I love my mother. Did I say I have 35 Twitter followers? It's not even in Google yet. What?
75.
I love you. Thank you. You know, when I started AimClear, it was just me, right? So I go, oh, at AimClear. If I was telling somebody to do that, I go start one for the company and do at Marty Weintraub. So it's a good thing somebody parked that thing in 2008, or else I'd be really bummed. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about right rail ads. They have a place in this too, but I'm not going to talk about them. They're great if you need a lot of distribution and awareness, and you want to run straight up ads and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about this. And this is now a case study that's aggregated from a number of cases. I've mushed together like more than 10 case studies to show you this data. So you put it on your blog or the site that you own, and you're very careful about packaging it. That's black and yellow, and those the yellow thing on black is not in the Facebook template. Like, you're very intentional. When you put something on a Facebook wall, people, you could replace every field and the image, and you do that, and you're serious about it. And then choose some targetings. Choose some targeting, put it on your wall. We'll get to the wall part. So let's say we're selling like tires, like targeting people who drive crossovers. They live in $1 million house. they like a tire company, and they live in a certain place, right? Amplifying content that's about what's a tire pressure monitoring system and how can it save your ass? That kind of beautiful blog content that's good for mid-funnel content entry against content marketing KPIs. Here's another target. They're service intenders according to a data service. You could do this all in Facebook. They like going on car trips. Their car's 3-year-old, so their OEM tires are wearing out. Because if you're selling tires to people that own Kias, you could target the ones whose tires are running out. And they like to use high-end department store credit cards. And yes, the question you ask is, what kind of scale do you get? And this is a 300,000 person segment for multiple types of car sedans. And then you put it on the Facebook page and you're very careful about how you package it. It's not uncommon to spend a half hour with a couple of people really working this or longer. And when you package it, you don't go, try my product. You don't say, buy my tires, because I should. You should buy my tires. You go, let's see, you go, keeping your family safe is the only consideration. Here's how. Car owners need to understand how this can save your life. You know, it's a little ways to the sale from that pitch, but you'll get a really great CTR. Let's break down how it works. This is for a Facebook community of about 100 people where they're lightly active, so there's not a lot of edge rank work here, but they're posting something well done on their Facebook page. I'm using older Facebook graphs here because some of these metrics have gone away, but they're still there even though Facebook doesn't show them to us. So we've recreated this with old-looking analytics because I like the way this illustrates it. Blue is the organic impressions. I put it on my Facebook page, and like 2% of the people saw it out of 100,000 people. That's nifty because even if I get a 5% click-through ratio, what's 5% of 2,000, please?
100.
What?
100.
Okay, so that's how many people you're going to get to take an action on average in that 100,000 person community if you get a 5% CTR. Hardly worth the energy, actually. The purple is what Facebook calls response, right? They say that different ways at different times. And the teal is how many people ultimately see it. So you see the organic thing for my community, you see whatever minimal propagation occurs, and you see the aggregate. So you're wailing away at 2,000 impressions a day to your 100,000 person community, right? And the bottom line is green, there's no paid, nothing paid, no amplified. So pay attention to the red box here, right? Because that represents a 2-week time period. That's what happens when I dial in a little bit of money to amplify that content to psychographic segments like the ones that I told you. So you could get all excited about that reach, but you could bullshit reach by buying a page post ad. But you cannot bullshit that, where people react to it at a greater bump than the purchase reach. So in other words, if the reach you purchase is here, but you target it and package it so well that the reaction to it is that, then your system is working and you're introducing new people into the system, which is what's missing from social as a channel right now. And so I understand getting people to do things inside of Facebook sometimes means you dead end inside of Facebook, and sometimes means you drive traffic externally to sites that you own, like blog posts or landing pages. But if you're good enough to package it on the wall in a way that reliably drives external, and you have content where you say to come to this page means that good things will happen, where the purchase reach results in a greater lift in the good things you want to happen, it works every time. It just works every time. If you don't get that effect where you amplify your content and you get greater results than the purchase reach, then your targeting sucks, or your packaging is weak, or your landing experience is bad. Looking at this, I mean, of course we spent money for this, right? They don't give us the talking about this metric anymore. Usually when channels take away metrics, it's because somehow it helps us, but this never really helped us with shit, and they took it away. Reach is up almost 3,000%. Likes, I mean, right, I'd rather people like us than not like us, but I don't want to pay for likes ever. That's like flying a rocket ship down to SA for a candy bar. Look, the content team that worked on this and the social media team is about 20K in salaries a month. 25 actually. So remember that whole thing where the 2 weeks before were statistically insignificant? how can I not amplify content in a paradigm where there's little social distribution unless you achieve a lot to get the distribution? But this is the rub. This is the big part right here. Look, in 1998, I was marketing the band Ipso Facto in Minneapolis. How many of you know I did the 488 commercials? I was a musician that did those. Trivia. I was marketing a band and we had a MySpace page for them. And so really good things happened when we put table tents on like Archie's Bunker or wherever it was, Mr. Nibs, whoever it was at the time. And it was cool. We got people to go to the MySpace page with email and with table tents. And there was a continuum of things that occurred. Good things inside the channel. They played the music. They followed us on MySpace. And there are great things that happened from that. MySpace shit went higher in Google. More people bought our records in record stores. There's good stuff that happens in social. And it also drove people to the band website. You see something that happened good in the channel, something that happened external. Driving qualified traffic into any page, post, detail page in any social channel always results in a continuum of things that do or do not happen in that channel and drive people external or not. It's a blended result. Facebook is important because all social is like that, but Facebook was the first one that ever let us see it. But now we understand why MySpace worked, right? I do. Sad that I think about MySpace has been sending me really stupid ass emails, like I care. So get into the notion of blended actions when you drive people into social. So there's a few ways of looking at this. There's 549 actions that resulted as a result of the post amplification in people's feeds targeted to psychographics. Yes, you paid for every like. Yes, you paid for every comment. Yes, you paid for those things, but I don't give a shit because I'm looking down in the lower right and I'm after 88-cent clicks to my website, and that's what I just purchased because I know I get content marketing KPIs from it. The 222 page post likes, they're free. The big kid way of thinking about that is that you have a 33% blended action and then you make sure that the bar graph looks right. But the bottom line is that whenever you're spending money to amplify stuff in social, you're tuned in to the continuum of internal and external actions, the benefits that you gain internally for that channel, in search engines, or in an attributable way if you can. It's an internal thing and an external thing. So how many people have ever been asked, oh, by a boss or stakeholder, what's the value of a like? I go, nothing. What I have there is I have 88-cent traffic that's killer-ass traffic where it converts better than organic does because it's so focused against content marketing APIs, and the likes are freaking free. Right? They're free. And if you run these types of campaigns in any channel, that's what happens. You learn to tune the content to drive the external if you want, or to keep them inside. If you post a picture on a Facebook page with no link, they're not going anywhere, right? And you have to understand the units. The big kid way to do it is to think about a layered action and global cost per action. So I can't go very far into Twitter, but these programs run like that in Twitter too, and in LinkedIn too. Like we'd have to spend another hour talking about targeting in these two channels, but I would look up Mary Morud's work. Mary Morud, she's done a lot. So literally, they're peeling off money from display budgets at our client shop, and they're letting us run things that are like page post ads everywhere on the internet as their display strategy. Because instead of running display ads, they're getting mid-funnel content marketing entry against content marketing KPIs. Here's what I mean. This is an ad that we placed in marketing land, but we could have run it in any display place with any psychographic data, right? I mean, 10 Kevlar PPC analyses and process for a bulletproof account. I mean, I'm not going, hey, check out Aim Clear, download my dumbass white paper. I'm not doing that. I'm giving something away, and it's going to a blog post. People spend like 4 or 5, 6 minutes in that shit. It's remarkable how it works. And I get leads from it. It's amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna out the Duluth News Tribune right now. I think this is a little shaky. This is that concept of like using display channels as like native content amplification, this is the Duluth News Tribune mobile, and you'll see its opinion, our view, news and crime, promoted. You know what? Promoted is what they called it when it moved to the front page in Dig after a whole shit pile of people voted for it. People don't know what the hell promoted means. Promoted. And look at the title, be prepared for your doctor, visit with these 10 questions. That's not like your mom's display ads at all. Or how does the cloud enable the distributed company? Like, this is an ad, it's right above the part that says the ad start, and it's right in the news. How these small business owners made their dreams come true. 4 ways that one device can help. This should look familiar to us social marketers, because now newspapers that don't make enough money are whoring it out right to the edge of what the FTC will allow. And this is what completely blows my mind. Don't get me started about this. That's the Duluth News Tribune today. That's a picture of a dude and a fish. It's inches, so it's about fish, I mean, we measure fish in inches, 42-inch to a 34-inch waist. Okay, so first I'm offended because I'm a fat middle-aged guy and I'm seeing this ad in the first place, so that bothers me. This content is hosted in the Duluth News Tribune under their masthead. Wow, I wrote him a note, said, how do I buy that shit? And I was looking on the Samsung site for the S5 owner's manual, and I was on the Kindle HD, the Kindle site, researching 64 meg Kindle Fire HDX tablets, and I was retargeted here in these SERPs for in this newspaper feed, in an article that was hosted in the newspaper that said why, it was all about the truth behind how Kindle incinerates iPad. Washington Post does something like that, they're straight up about it. They say it's a branded thing. There's a lot of disclosure in it. When you get to the content, they tell you what it is. Okay, content amplification, not just Facebook, display channels, lots of data everywhere against content marketing KPIs. Rand, this is what I was trying to say at Moz that day about filtered retargeting. They invented it the next year, it was called remarketing. So here's the deal. Do you think that Google has it in their technological power to make it so we run searches to our money keywords, but only to people who have amazing credit? Or additional layers of filtering? Of course they do. Why do you think they don't give us that? Because they wouldn't sell any AdWords, right? Like, I've been at search engines, I will not say what search engine has hired me to help, and I go, why don't you just put economic lenses, and why don't you put psychographic lenses, and go, if there's more than 500,000 searches a month, they go, well, we won't make any money, Marty. So what Google did in their never-ending quest to make it so we could do it, but it costs more money to do it, is they let us layer that shit if we remarket. We could send the first hop from search. We could filter the second hop by anything that is a Google Display Network filter. This is a blog post. If I lose you here, here's the premise. If you're at scale, you could retarget everyone, or you could filter out the ones who have shitty credit. Or filter in the ones who like to buy high-end sporting equipment and have an American Express black card. That's easy, right? That's super easy. So it's not really a search funnel, it's more like a search bond. And it's all about how you're introducing people into the system and how you decide to follow them. That whole MozCom thing in one bond image, man. You could drive them in from search and try to sell to them, and drive them in from psychographics and try to sell to them. And if you don't sell to them, then you can follow them around, either wide open or additionally filtered. Here's the combinations. These all work really well. You could drive them in from contextual and retarget and filtered by search. That's called RSLA. That's AdWords. How many people here use RSLA? Crap. Drive in 50,000 orthodontists and then serve AdWords campaigns to those people, because you can expand the keywords farther because you already know who they are. Right, you could expand it. Search, retargeting, filtered by psychographics. There's a whole bunch of ways to do that. Ad roll doesn't filter. Ad roll is wide open. Perfect if you don't have very much scale. But any DMP will filter by any of those data services. For the most part, in the internet universe, including in Facebook with custom audiences, that is essentially Facebook native retargeting, you can filter that second hop. What's unbelievably powerful is when you keep track of those people in a new list and then you just own that as a curated audience until you're done with them. You could drive people in with search and run AdWords to other queries. You could drive them in with psychographics and filter it by other psychographics. Because until this time in the internet, persona modeling was actually kind of bullshit. But it's not anymore, because if you know how to keep track of the data, then big data in marketing really is just about list building and keeping track of what drove people into the system and what you're following them. Let's talk about Google Plus page post amplification. Anybody running them? Okay, so you remember that whole thing about how when you drive people into social and they're very good users, very qualified users, it's a continuum of internal good things that happen and driving people internal, and it's about tuning your content to do what you want it to do. See you later, have a nice trip home. I understand, it's late. So hurt. Mother. Okay, I feel better. So in Google Plus, what's the booty for achieving internal engagement? SEO, right? Because if you plus my shit, we've talked about this. What do you think the benefit for internal engagement in Google Plus is if people plus your shit or follow it? Do you think it helps your organic prominence to the people the followers of the people who engage?
Depends. Sometimes.
It's better than not. Getting engagement in Google Plus is a lot better than not getting engagement in Google Plus, and it tends to impact SEO in many cases. Well, it's not really SEO, but basically if you interact with my shit, then your friends might get a dose of my stuff. No longer with your recommendation though. It's kind of interesting. So if you run these kinds of content amplification in Google Plus, and sometimes I care more about them enrolling in Google Plus than I do about coming to the blog post because of the benefits that occur. You need 1,000 followers in Google Plus to run post-engagement ads, and you can run them from remarketing lists, and you can run them from GDN psychographics. They're unbelievably powerful. We're talking 3 and 4% click-through ratio and people buying shit. Doing it works really well. Okay, other hot topics as we wind down. Lookalike audiences, anybody do lookalikes in Facebook? It can be very powerful if you have a big enough list. You could build custom audiences that are essentially, how many people retarget into FBX using ad roll? Raise your hand. Stop that. It costs 30% more than running Facebook native retargeting, and in Facebook you can add additional targeting, including income qualification and purchase intender data, including they intend to purchase business marketing services. So it's pretty deep. So this just works. I mean, we've been doing this for years and years. When Facebook quit, when GM quit Facebook ads pre-IPO, which basically meant that Facebook had shittier PR than Google and other companies were willing to do dirty tricks, we wrote an article, thanks GM, that leaves more Facebook ads for me, because it felt like we had to, because we have clients that use Facebook. You know what happened was, after I spent $18, I got a phone call from, I amplified it to people who write for Media Post and USA Today and various publications. I got a call from a staff writer at Advertising Age magazine who said, I just saw it in your feed, Marty, in my feed. I looked up your company, I checked out your LinkedIn profile, you obviously know about Facebook. Well, what do you think of this stuff? I talked to her for an hour. I've been a media source for her on different occasions and referred media sources to her. I got a link on the site. It was transient, but I was glad to have it. I got a mention in the paper publication. I spent $18. How much would you spend to get that PR placement? Like, I'd spend a lot to get that PR placement. I'd hire somebody to do it. So the bottom line is if somebody likes movable type or free WordPress themes, you have a pretty good idea what they're about. We've placed things on regional and national morning shows. You could target people who are hardcore news reporters and let them think they discovered your urban legend, which works really well. All sorts of roles, news producers and radio producers and technical producers. And you can further refine them. The stuff I have in here doesn't even begin to speak to how you can refine them. You can find the priest bloggers or the military bloggers or whatever. Or this is very powerful. This targets people who are bloggers at certain companies, works really well. Or certain interests who are journalists. And all of a sudden with all these email things where you can paste an email list in Twitter or in Facebook and target those people who are targeted because of their email address, but they don't know it. All of a sudden buying premium email lists means a whole bunch more stuff that it didn't mean before. Also, here's a little trick. When you target people who follow people in Twitter, you also target the person. So target the followers in the person's state and run campaigns to specific Twitter influencers, and every other impression is expendable, except they see their own people buzzing about it, and that helps. It's wacky. Okay, so just in review, psychographics is our new job description, honest. It's the way we wish we could target organic. We just kind of can't. I don't mean to diss organic. Lee Oden said something, you tweeted after I spoke at a conference recently that it was a drastic overstatement when I said nobody sees your shit. So I'll clarify by saying a lot more qualified people see your shit, and organic usually moves too slowly. Like the thing we hear is that I'm not introducing new people who are qualified into the system fast enough, and I think you were right, and I changed the way that I talk about it, because organic is huge. Get used to the idea of running the same kind of content amplification that we run in page post ads everywhere on the internet. Like, you'll be seeing it in native ads in newspapers, you'll be seeing it with Outbrain type stuff in CNN, you'll be seeing it everywhere. Like literally, our clients are peeling off display budget and they're saying, do what you do in Facebook everywhere else and tune it so it drives internally. Layer with economic qualification on the first targeting hop if you can, and if you remarket or retarget or do Facebook native retargeting custom audiences, consider adding on qualifying factors if you have enough scale to do it. Take in mind human life cycles. You know, if you're a marketer and you get a new job as a CMO somewhere, you want to shake things up. So getting a new job, that's a really important thing. Filter it a little farther. Make content marketing KPIs the display strategy. What we've learned in social is taking over the display department, drive them into the website, run AdWords campaigns to those people. Package for impact. Remember that if you're doing a hard sell on something you can sell right now, you go, try my freaking product. But if you can't sell it the first time and you're using content to do it, then understand that that is a mid-funnel entry and you need to make out with them before you invite them up to your room to see your art collection. What the hell did I just say? Auschwitz and jet lag. Link build, listen, even if you're just running sales campaigns for using content, why not trail segmented messaging as dark Facebook page posts or dark tweets, meaning it's not on your walls, but you can amplify it to media roles, because if you do it long enough, it's like, I'm a shitty fisherman. I go to the boundary waters, I drag a lure behind my boat. I eat every day. I go to enough places, right? Google Plus page post ads, okay, so this is a bit of hyperbole, but you know, it's hyperbole until you watch the results of running the amplification ads in webmaster tools and in analytics. And that's really all I need to see about the benefit of getting people to interact with you in Google Plus. Well, I see what Google says I should see. I don't think you care about that loyalty application, because I haven't talked about it. Sorry, I didn't take that out. And organize on an editorial calendar for sure. Like, you have to organize this stuff. Okay, so I wrote 2 books. Okay, so I won't ask you to follow me on Twitter, but you can if you want. I guess I just did ask, but it's okay. Sorry, I'm neurotic. We have a thing called the super secret psychographic social distribution weekly tip sheet. We never sell to you with it. It's 280 characters and a screen capture. It's a pretty huge list now. It's secret because if you Google it, you won't find it. And I only talk about it at conferences and we never write about it. So Jen Lopez called me out for indexing accidentally. So if you also, you're Minnesota marketers and I would like to personally connect with all of you. So please email me if you would like to be on the list. Email me if you would not like to be on the list and you just want to email me to say hi. This is my home, Minnesota. I lived in Burnsville for 15 years. I've lived in Duluth since 1995, and you are the coolest marketers in the world. So thank you.